Adherence to traditional religion is in decline. Something new is taking its place, and I'm deeply concerned about what the results might be.
We will! Be heard! Be heard! Everybody give your me!
I will love my black neighbors the same as my white ones.
You may lose God from your society, and as a non-believer I have very mixed views about that. But just because you've lost God from your society doesn't mean you don't have God-shaped holes. The massive God-shaped hole in our society is what the hell people are meant to be doing with their time here on Earth. The woke answer it with a pretty good answer of their own, which is that life can be most meaningfully lived by fighting for justice.
The Emperor Constantine is said to have embraced Christianity after a dream told him to adopt the chi rho symbol as part of Roman military insignia. Constantine ordered this Christian symbol to be painted on his army's shield and won the battle of the Milvian Bridge, it is being said, the next day. That he did so under the sign of the chi rho was the founding moment of the Holy Roman Empire. The hinge for many people, for humanity, for the last 2,000 years, event that turned Christianity from a minority sect into a power, both spiritual and political. For those of you that doesn't know what a sign chi rho means, at least from that perspective, it's the first and the last letter for Christos in the Greek alphabet. Well, friends, today it seems that we're watching similar events. It seems that today we're watching a transition of seemingly fair ideology, which is called wokeness. And it seems that for many people, this ideology kind of transitioned from a fringe cult, mainstream public morality to become what is today seen as almost a religion. It's happening both in our plague-racked and protest-driven urban public squares, cities around the world. In the digital, nevertheless, in the digital public square, whose rule makers are largely already converts to this new religion. Some people might protest that TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and alike isn't the real world. And it doesn't matter what people do in that artificial reality. But the story of Constantine shows how mass adoption of a new worldview can owe as much to elite champions of new ideology as deep inner convictions. History has shown us that plenty will embrace, that populations in majority, if you look back just for the last 2 to 3 years, will embrace whatever seems to be the new status faith, because the majority, unfortunately, the history has shown us that they don't care much either way and they don't want to miss out on promotion, going on vacation, being careless. It's just about here and now. So now, friends, imagine that you were one of these centurions in the Roman army. Your legion has been commanded to paint over your shield this insignia with a hero symbol. And that thanks to a lockdown edict from the new woke emperor. You, being a regular worshipper of the Roman Empire at that point in time, you had your plethora of household gods. Of course, Caesar's has to be there, Caesar and other deities. And you were faced with the reality that you either do it because you had no choice, and it doesn't matter much either way. Orders are orders, rules are rules. So my question to you today: have we human changed? And by this, I'd like to welcome my partner and Pastor Mark Chambers to this program. Welcome and good morning, Mark. Thank you again for
Good morning.
being live with us from Santa Cruz, Bolivia on this early morning for you.
Certainly a pleasure to be here and to be able to participate in this very important program. Wokeness is making its inroad on our society, and we have to give a clear response. Thank God Christian faith
Yeah.
does have a response. So I'm happy to join you here today, Michael.
Question: looking back at history, 2000 history, have we human changed? Do we change our behavior over time? Are we better today to not just encompass, but also to prevent eventuality that there are new religions, new orders, new mindsets, new ideologies? Are we better today to understand reality? Has reality become more clear to us than it was 2000 years ago? And before we answer this question, and I'm going to ask you to answer this question, Marek, let's watch a short video. And I want to put this short video clip for our viewers that might think that we have no problem with reality perception. I'm smart enough, intelligent enough, I know enough. I'm actually able enough to perceive reality as it is, and I will not be deceived. That's probably what most of us will say. But is that so? Have a look at this short video clip.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now,
for those of you that haven't realized, actually, this was the man below. It was actually acting through artificial intelligence. Right. So now that wasn't Morgan Freeman. It was just a computerized image and voice of Morgan Freeman. So we have reached to a point in society and in the world today, Mark and our viewers, where almost everything can be faked. The information you receive today, people around you, nevertheless the news, medication you are supposed to take, even the health today has been to a large extent being faked today. So how are we going to navigate today in this type of reality? You have any comment on this, Mark?
Yes, it's bringing to bear more closely and more clearly what we read in the scriptures about those who haven't received the love of the truth. What we read in the book of Revelation about what will happen to those who love and make a lie. You know, we tend to just think of liars when we read texts like that, but it actually says those that love the lie. So it seems, and it's unveiling to us now as we get closer and closer to the end of days, that there is going to be an epidemic. In fact, there is going to be a pandemic. It's spreading, and it has begun. A pandemic of virtual reality, a pandemic of love for the lie, love for the fake, love for the unreal. And this is something dangerous. I mean, in fact, it will be one of the most dangerous things that human society will have to encounter, will have to relate to. Whether you receive it or whether you reject it will determine your destiny. Paul says in Second Thessalonians chapter 2, he speaks about those that received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved, but they believed the lie so that they can be damned. This is what is happening and what is being pushed upon human experience today is actually something of grave consequences. Grave consequences. We're talking about consequences not just for our lives now, but for our eternal destinies. So this topic that and I believe that at the basis of the woke agenda is exactly this. A push to skew reality, a push to twist reality, to invert reality. So this is a very, very, very important topic that we're touching this morning.
I know many people will probably say that's nothing to do with me. There is a lot of connection when we talk about wokeness and woke, connecting that to LGBTQ plus community. I may not, or maybe I do have some connection with that community, so I would just leave it alone. But I would say that that's a perceiving reality where you actually have been already deceived. Because it seems to me that for a major part of humanity, wherever the so-called celebrities, politicians, billionaires, and reality makers on mainstream media, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, the rest of the world seems to follow, mesmerized. And because of these, the arguments over what you can and cannot say, and that used to be classified under freedom of speech before, in fact matter a great deal. But I would dare to say from our perspective here that as defenders, some people are still defenders of reason. and moral framework seems to have already lost, because we are arguing from sacred values, and sacred means unchangeable. That wokeness, the woke ideology, has long since abandoned. Or have we lost it? So, Mark, in our Roman legion analogy that we did in the beginning here for today's topic, probably a few stubborn soldiers might complain, how can you only have one God? Who's supposed to guard your household now? You might have asked if you were one of these Roman soldiers that suddenly received the order. You just paint the hero over your shield and that's it. You don't have any other God. Well, it seems that not that many people listens, because that sort of thing can and will get you in trouble. You just follow with the current thing and everything is going to be all right. And besides, didn't you know that gods today aren't even a thing? There is this saying, it's so yesterday, so last year. I'm probably a little bit concerned, but many years ago I was reading a lot of Shakespeare. And one of his, he did a lot of writing, also plays for what happened in the Roman Empire, and he once wrote actually quite interesting things, that there is a tide in the affairs of men. An observation that surely rings true in a historical assessment, and nevertheless today, because the main character in that play was Julius Caesar, who spoke these cunning words and went to command the following, that tide for personal gain is as much as is possible, but gain for whom? Well, this very interesting book that I've recently discovered on this very important topic point us to the headlines, and social media posts announced to us yet more anti-racist initiatives, more compulsory social justice teaching sessions, more racial equity funding measures, more instances of people being racist who we never imagined as such. The imperatives and accusation pile up. Be less white. Your silence on racial matters is violence. No justice, no peace. Some of this advocacy is soft, some of it is hard, but in aggregate form it threatens to overwhelm us. It adds to a common line addressed to people of all colors, background. The threat is be woke or else. Mark, are you silent on this topic? Are you woke?
It is clear that there is an insidious determination on the part of those who have invented this new paradigm. They are determined to bring it over the whole world. Like a blanket, like a shroud, it will cover the globe. And as they're saying, you either receive it or else. You receive it, you will be given the carrots. You stand against it and you will face, the stick. But we have to decide what is more important, um, bodily suffering, in discomfort, difficulty in life, the loss of our comforts and assets in this world, or the truth. There is a determination, as the AI um, um, presentation said, welcome to synthetic reality. We have to understand that what that is, whether you want to call it virtual reality or synthetic reality, it means it's not real. It is not real. If it's not real, it's not true. And to receive it, to submit to it, is to submit to a lie. And the consequences for that are eternal. Each one of us have to decide. Is this wokeness? Why did they choose this term woke? It's insinuating awakeness. It's insinuating awakening. So it's a new awakening, a fake awakening. Awakening to what? An awakening to the fact that we can actually live in a world that's devoid of reality, a world where where all your energies and your focus is strained, or is all your focus and all your observatory senses are measured, or are tainted with that which is not real. So what's going to happen in this world of wokeness? They are determined to filter in the world of wokeness everything that's true, everything that's real. It has to be strained out, and everybody has to be put through the strainer. If you have any affinity to reality, you cannot go through that strainer and into that new system. And they are making it so that we believe that the only way to survive, the only way to retain what we have achieved so far, is to go through the strainer. Go through the strainer, or else you will not be able to buy or sell, or else you will have no platform for expression, or else you will not be able to retain your assets. You will lose your house, you will lose your cars, you will have to go naked, because if you can't buy or sell, what are you going to wear when the few clothes that you have becomes tattered rags? It's presenting to us an option. Either you go through the strainer, or you can find yourself among the people in Hebrews chapter 12. That's where it is. And I'm going to take us there a little bit later. But we're at a great junction, a junction in our existence where no one is exempt. We all will have to make the choice. Am I going to go through the strainer that frees me, sets me free from every concept of reality, every connection with reality and truth, so that I can be free in this metaverse, in this world of virtual or synthetic reality, where all is accessible, all that is pleasurable and easy, all that is pleasurable to quiet my mind and my conscience is just easy and apparently free. Am I going to go through the strainer, or am I going to go through their invented hell? Which one? I have to make a choice, and so do you. But I'm realized that if I make the choice to go through the strainer, Jesus Christ who is the truth, has to be sifted out from my consciousness, has to be sifted out from my experience. The church will be sifted. That's what the strainer is. It's a sift. And wokeness is Satan's modern and final last day sift, to sift us from every vestige of truth and reality. And to be sifted is to be left devoid of God, devoid of Christ, devoid of his system of reality. May God help us. By his grace, I will choose truth. I'll choose reality. I'll choose Christ and the kingdom of God.
Consequently, many Christian men and women are profoundly confused, obviously. And I'm sure that probably some of our viewers, those of you that are following live now and maybe will watch this program later, well, actually the description is too weak. Many men and women are dazed, destabilized, disoriented, and disheartened, maybe. Some of us, some of the Christianity, some people even in the agnostic or the secular world sense that there is a tide that it's coming to carry them away by this movement that may well be marshaling straight against everybody else, straight against the traditional society, that will eventually, and it has already rocked the boat. But many of us have very little idea how to react, how to respond, and what to do, and even where the spiritual paddles in the boat are stowed. So the question to you and I, and to everybody else, does your and my Christianity help you resist this tide? Because what I'm seeing from this point of view, when I'm looking at the world, I'm actually seeing a tsunami. It's not just a wave. It's not just even a tide. Do you hear the roaring of the tsunami? You know, I looked up online here doing this presentation, and the definition is abnormal ocean activity. A wall of water and an approaching tsunami create a loud roaring sound similar to that of a train or a jet aircraft. So friends, if your sound technology, if your technology of perceiving reality of what's happening right now is silent when this tsunami is coming, if you don't hear the roaring, we might have a serious problem. What is wokeness? Let's look at this short video clip, which is brought from another YouTuber, another channel that actually dived a little bit more into this topic as well, also built on his own experience. Have a look.
The never-ending fight for justice has become a new political religion that is based largely around the concept of intersectionality. Intersectionality is the idea that people can have more than one overlapping marginalized identity characteristic. Whoever has the most marginalized characteristics is the most oppressed and has the best access to truth. As a result of prizing subjective experience over objective truth, it is nearly impossible to have productive conversations on important issues, and many otherwise intelligent people have started to believe and act in ways that they otherwise would not.
It's not enough. It needs to stop.
It's not just that it's just spontaneously or arbitrarily pops up. There's a system in place that manufactures these ideas. They look at the universities as their own particular ideology mill, and they indoctrinate people into intersectionality. These are people who are teaching very dangerous ideas. What makes those ideas dangerous is that they're divisive. We start looking at each other in terms of race. This does not advance civil rights causes. It's exactly the opposite. One of the reasons this has taken such sway is because there's a kernel of truth to all of it.
As a result of the tragic killing of George Floyd and others, books like White Fragility and How to Be an Anti-Racist have once again become bestsellers as people try to make sense of race in America and figure out what they can do to help. The problem is that these books are acting as poorly written religious tracts that convey concepts like all white people are racist and literally everything in life revolves around race. Masses of people are being indoctrinated into a new religion without even realizing it. It probably doesn't feel like indoctrination. Many people may just think that we are finally waking up to injustice. The truth, however, is much more dismal. The iconic texts of the woke religion are intentionally divisive, and the end goal is not equality. Objectivity, reason, and even science itself are considered to be white, male, Western constructs, rather than simply being the best tools we have to understand reality. This kind of thinking is being pushed on people of all ages.
We now even hear of children being told that if their parents or grandparents do not agree with the views that they have been given, then they should distance themselves or condemn their parents and grandparents. And I think, by the way, that this is revealing of nothing so much as a cult. Any movement that says that people you love who do not entirely agree with the point of view that you are told to believe, that you should distance yourself from those people, that's a cult. It's a cult.
One key aspect of successful indoctrination is not being aware that it's occurring. It took me a while to realize it, but I know what it's like to be indoctrinated and to have my view of reality drastically altered by religion. I grew up in a small conservative town where nearly every aspect of my life was controlled. I was brought up in a fundamentalist sect of Christianity and was sheltered from much of the outside world. Any secular influence had the potential to lead me into sin, so it had to be kept away. Similarly, the woke are creating an environment in which speech and actions need to be controlled or silenced. Anything that doesn't conform to this puritanical worldview is simply wrong. There are goals to be reached, and the ends certainly justify the means. Workplaces and schools are being segregated for special diversity trainings, desperately needed police units are being defunded, and people are taught that their skin color is something to obsess over rather than ignore. But this is all done in the name of justice, and it's seen as virtuous.
Why do you think people are so hoodwinked by this?
Because it's an answer to a number of very big questions. It says in a quasi-religious manner, in fact, it's better than religion, isn't it? Because religion says if you sort these things out, then in a life to come, you will find salvation. And the social justice activists and the intersectionists and much more say, if you do all of these things, we can get justice here on earth.
So one of the reasons I think people are so hoodwinked, I think they're hoodwinked by language. I think they're hoodwinked by these words. Equity sounds really good. Inclusion sounds really good. Diversity sounds really good. Safe space sounds really good. All of these words sound good. And most people, they don't really know what they mean. I mean, just think, anti-racism.
Yeah, who's not on board with that?
If you don't know the moral underpinnings of that, or Black Lives Matter. Well, of course Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Once people agree on the reprehensible nature of racism, homophobia, bigotry, misogyny, once they agree on that, then of course they want to be on the side of the people opposed to all of that. The problem is then you jump onto the side of all the people who are opposed to all that and you discover they can do things as wicked as anyone else.
Indeed, language does matter. We have raised this topic today to bring especially Christians and, of course, any interested friend, conversation partners to an awareness on wokeness, and then to point to an answer to this new religion. That we do not hide that we critique the movement strongly, we still invite warmly our viewers and everyone to engage in a respectful dialogue and conversation about these explosive topics, because indeed these are very complex ideologies that require careful handling and studied contemplation. Writer of this very interesting book, Owen Strachan, because like any other theory-driven discipline, wokeness has its own vocabulary, definitive literature, intramural discussions. Many people in general and many Christians in particular do not grasp it and are not studying it. Yet every day we hear the imperatives. White people should be less white. End quote. According to material presented in a training session for Coca-Cola employees, as just one head-spinning example. And I'm going to bring you that example from Coca-Cola in a few minutes.
Just one point there, Michael. To bring out that what was quoted there, that wokeness has its own vocabulary. It does, in a sense. But in a sense, there is a sense in which it has no vocabulary. What wokeness has done, what wokeness is doing, is to hijack basic vocabulary, to redefine words, to invert every single word. Because woke should mean that you are awakened. It should mean that you have come to a consciousness. It's not to be awake, is not to be asleep. When one is asleep, you're in a state of altered consciousness or lack of consciousness. But to be awake is to be aware of reality. Woke and wokeness is a hijacking of vocabulary. The very word itself encapsulates its reality or lack of reality thereof, because it's a word that does not belong to the movement. It does not fit the movement, because it's a movement that is designed to alter our perception of reality, to bring us in a state where we are asleep to reality, where we become unconscious of reality. And this whole movement is predicated on this very concept, this very principle of inverting vocabulary. You know, you can see it in how the rainbow is being used today, very different from the reality of what the rainbow was and was established to the reality that the rainbow was established to convey. God's promise, God's faithfulness to his word, when he says, I will not destroy the world with water. Again, because he had to do something to comfort the hearts of those who, for all their existence, they had not seen lightning, they had not heard a thunder, they had not seen water descend from the sky until the moment of the flood. So all these things in this altered state of reality were very discomforting. They were very troubling. Rain falling would remind every human being of the great cataclysm of the flood that destroyed the world. So he had to give a sign that would comfort those that would believe that God is trustworthy, that his word is true and it is sure. So whenever there was rain, he put a bow in the sky and he said, you will see my bow there, and it will remind you of my covenant with you, that I will not again destroy the world with water. You don't have to be afraid of the rain. You don't have to be afraid of lightning and thunder. It does not mean that an overwhelming cataclysm is about to take the world by storm. Believe in me. If you can trust my word, You have my promise and you have the sign. But this sign has been hijacked. And at the basis of this hijacking, this hijacking of the sign of the rainbow is the symbol, of this movement. Inversion of reality, inverted reality, and the inversion of our vocabulary. Wokeness has no vocabulary but that which already exists. It has to create a vocabulary by turning on its head the vocabulary that already exists, by inverting it. Are you going to go into the strainer? We have to awake. We have to awake because it's so powerful. And this is what makes wokeness so powerful. Because once your vocabulary is twisted, once you are able to gain control of words, you have control of reality, because the Bible itself tells us, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was God, and the Word was with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So Satan is trying to create a new world, and he's beginning with vocabulary. He's beginning with the word. And if we succumb to his new definitions, we will inadvertently, eventually succumb to his reality. So that the rainbow becomes something distasteful. So that the word gay, which actually meant happy, joyful, now has been hijacked to mean something distasteful, something perverted, something that has nothing to do with what the word actually meant. There is a whitewashing, an inversion of our vocabulary. So wokeness actually has not just begun. Wokeness has been around for a while, working its way insidiously in a movement of infiltration, leavening our vocabulary, and thereby leavening our perception of reality. We have to awake, and we have to take back. We have to protect the vocabulary, because otherwise our children, when they see the rainbow, the farthest thing from their mind will be God's word, God's promise, God's faithfulness. What will the rainbow mean to your children? What does the rainbow mean to you? You know, I saw some churches painting rainbows, painting their steps, rainbow colors in their steps, rainbows, and what are we saying? We say, look at the abomination that they're bringing in. Why? Because wokeness has captivated the symbol of that color, of those color. Now they're not. It has been redefined to depict something that, okay, is biblically abominable. But what if we had rainbows in the churches in their proper context? Are we now then to rid our churches from those colors that God himself established? Do you see where this is bringing us? It is saying you accept the inverted definition of words, or you cannot use those words. It's saying you are going to accept this new reality, or there will be no reality. It's not one or the other. Wokeness will not allow you the option of another mindset, of another consciousness. No, it's this way or nothingness. It's this so-called light or just absolute darkness. It's a real fight.
And speaking of language, we have to realize that we live in an age when many people, and it doesn't matter what reality perception you come from, frequently comment either online or physically harshly spreading rumors without so much as even viewing a video, listening to what we really say, reading an article. This is truly what I believe the Bible condemns: speak quickly, shoot from the hip like a cowboy, and judge angrily era, contradicting the admonition we find in a Bible verse from James 19 verse 20. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man worketh not righteousness of God. So it might be tempting to view this presentation as a work of dismissal and scorn, but this is not the purpose. Dear friends, this presentation has been carefully planned under divine guidance as an attempt to engage in a genuine dialogue with respect for the serious and consequential case made by the other side, both inside and outside a Bible-based Christianity. Because as you said, Mark, wokeness and its ramification, which is critical race theory, which we're going to mention shortly, and what we already seen in the short introduction video, the so-called intersectionality, have found its disciples for some understandable reasons. Race, ethnicity, justice, sexuality, and related concepts are, of course, no small issues and have to be understood and sorted out by everyone, even now in the difficult world that we are facing. So my hope for you, our viewers, and for everyone else is that this short introduction to this topic can help you toward that end. So let's make a status on what is really happening now. Can we just extrapolate and say, well, this is some deranged people, students, wherever is some university, college around the world? Is that so? Hundreds of Idaho schools now actively teach gender identity, shut down students who complain about boys in their restroom. Just happened yesterday. United Nations, February 05, looking to push religious communities to fully comply with LGBTQ agenda. And the statement goes from United Nations that it's releasing a report in June 2023 regarding the perceived contradictions between religious freedom and sexual orientation and gender identity laws. And it's looking to push governments to fully comply with their obligation under international, of course, human rights law, to protect and empower LGBT plus persons, according to a United Nations statement. February 2023, students in Scotland can change gender at 4 years old and don't require their parents' consent, say the Scottish government. The government has advised primary school staff that students as young as 4 and 5 who want to make that gender switch must be supported and listened to, because recognition and development of gender identity can occur at a young age, wrote Shirley Ann Somerville, Secretary for Education and Skills, in the report. Well, what about this? January 10 this year, The Atlantic made a quite intriguing question to you parents. What about defying you? Is defying parents the only ethical alternative. What about that? Instead of rigid rules, educators need the freedom to finesse delicate questions about young students' gender identity. Behold, unless some of us Christians forget, who do we belong to, and who does our children belong to? Because this has already been said and predefined. The soul of the Father, so also the soul of the Son is mine. So does the earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants, belong to the Lord. So before you make your comment on this, Mark, let me just point to our maybe some local viewers from around here, Scandinavia, Denmark. This is not a fringe happening. Your own government here, the government in Denmark, is right now enforcing legislation to make wokeness for real, also in Denmark. Mainstream channel in Denmark. No more Our Father, Danish pastor preaches a gender-neutral God. Let me take that. For some reason that came in front of the quotation. I'll just take it back. Because it's a quite important statement which is being done here. But I just want to make this one here as confused as this looks
I'm
like.
looking at this, Michael.
Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
it says at the bottom, men are trash.
Yeah.
Can you show it again while I talk? Men are trash. Women are equal. So what are women equal to? Trash. So this whole idea that this movement for women equalization, if you demean men, if the objective is to demean men, neither does it exalt women. Because if what you're trying to equate women to is trash, then everybody is trash. This is just crazy. Really, deception everywhere. Go ahead.
Statement goes that an English commission is looking whether God should be referred to in a gender-neutral way. But in North Jutland, Denmark, female pastor is already doing that. If you ask children, she's saying, for drawing a god, you will probably still get a long-bearded gentleman in a cloud. But this is an outdated image, at least if you ask Catherine Fisher, who is the parish priest in Nørresundby. God has no gender at all, she's saying. God is beyond the understanding of gender. In England, she's pointing that The Guardian writes that the country's pastors are currently struggling with the question, who is God? That is, in a gender sense. A newly established commission must therefore look into whether the pastor's sermons can become gender neutral. So what about that? What about, of course, we have the industry. The famous Danish company Lego wants to do away with gender bias in its toys, of course. And they made the statement that in the future, Lego will work to be more inclusive and to ensure that children's creative ambitions are not limited by gender stereotypes. Now, let me just rephrase that again. I'm not putting my words in their mouth, but what they refer in wokeness terminology, calling someone a male or female, it's a stereotype. It's not reality for them. The Lego Group writes in the press release and says that it will work together with some institute and, of course, United Nations UNICEF to ensure that the company's products and marketing target everyone without gender bias and harmful stereotypes. Whoa, Mark, I didn't know that calling someone male and female today, it has become harmful. So I'm sorry if everyone feels offended about this, but this is what the wokeness reality has brought us so far. And there is much more, but we don't have time to go. I'm just pointing to some of the reality which is happening today. So even if you live in your little cozy comfort Denmark, you will have to take a stand, because silence is compliance. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, it is. It's to affirm it, because wokeness is really cancel. It's cancel culture. I think that's a more precise term. It's the cancel culture. In order for their ends to be achieved, they have to cancel everything. So I think we're not capturing where this is going. In order for you to affirm effectively that there is no male or female, or that male female distinctions between human beings is non-essential to consider. You have to cancel all evidences to the contrary. And that means, and one of the most compelling areas where one sees the difference between male and female, that is reality, is biology. So you will have to cancel biology. Understand that if cancel culture has its way, in the future, schools will no longer teach biology. You think I'm exaggerating? Understand that what this is, it's the cancel culture. To create a new reality, you have to cancel the old. To create a new perceptions, you have to cancel reality. So if biology is going to stand in the way of the new gender identity, of new conformity to the new definition of gender identity, then it has to go. It has to be cancelled. The Bible must be cancelled. As far as gender, as far as cancel culture is concerned, I'm saying it. I'm deliberately saying it so that you associate what is termed wokeness, so that we get to associate what is termed wokeness or woke with what its reality is. It's the canceling of all things real. It's the canceling of all things true. So anything that you think that you have come to perceive as real is going to be canceled. I mean, starting with the Bible. They said they're setting up a new commission to see if sermons can be more gender inclusive. And so your definition of God cannot be biblical anymore. If you're going to have legitimate space in the pulpit, according to this system, it cannot be defined. The creator of the universe cannot be defined as the Bible defines him. It has to be redefined by cancel culture. So what else is going to go out the window? Is it just the Bible? So much is going to go out the window if we submit to cancel culture, if we submit to wokeness.
If we can,
I think you're sound.
yeah, let's ask this question and let's see if we can go along with the question which has been asked actually by the Spectator, which is the main mainstream journal, United States, on a very interesting date, 31st of October 2021. What if wokeness really is the new Christianity? Why won't you and I just accept it and embrace it? What is the issue? I would
need to stop
recommend
that right there. You cannot have a new Christianity that's distinct from the old. If ever there was a Christianity, it has roots. And you cannot separate the tree from its roots and expect that it will continue to live. So this gymnastic is not going to work. And it has been going on. You know, we have a Christian rock. That's an oxymoron. We have Christian pop and all these things. Christian, and you have gay church and gay bishops, and all these things are illegitimate. The world is at work to legitimize them. The world is at work to whitewash our perceptions. But this is not the church. You know, the church of Jesus Christ stands as it has stood. He has said that the gates of hell will try to prevail against the church, but it will not. So if we follow modern terminologies, in fact, it seems and it appears that the gates of hell has prevailed against the church, because now we have gay bishops, we have LGBTQ, and we have all these new things that are just oxymorons. Is this true? Is this reality? No. Is this really telling us that Christianity has been defeated? No. It's just a reorientation of systems, that form a part of society. But the Church of Jesus Christ, as he has established it, is still true. It still exists, and it's still governed by the same principle. It's still governed by the same King, the same God. The kingdom of heaven is still on planet Earth, and it will always be on planet Earth. And in fact, the kingdom of heaven is still growing on planet Earth. And the power within the kingdom, as Jesus said, he said the kingdom of heaven is like a woman who takes 3 measures of meal and she puts leaven in it, and the whole thing becomes leaven. The kingdom of heaven, the leaven of the kingdom, is still at work in hearts, individual hearts of men and women, boys and girls in this world. And it will not be overcome by darkness. It will not be overcome by lies. The scriptures tell us plainly that the Word was in the beginning. That Word was the light of men, and in him was the life. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has never put it out, and it will never put it out. Whoever allows this light to shine in them, Jesus said that it will be like a wellspring of water springing up into everlasting life. A wellspring of water. It means that it will not be 1 liter and just the flowing of 1 liter. It means that it will come forth. It will come forth liters and liters and millions of liters of living water from one soul, where the spring of life is allowed. That spring will flow to others. I have a message for the purveyors of the woke ideology. I love you, and God loves you. And because of love, reality has to be brought to bear on your consciousness. Wokeness is not taking you anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It will have its day, but it's momentarily. It's momentary. It's temporary. It will come to an end. If it's on the side of darkness, it will come to an end. And because once the light shines, it will overwhelm the darkness. So I want to say to everyone, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time aligning yourself with wokeness because it's becoming popular, or because those who seem to have political power or economic power, those who seem to be pulling the strings of economic success and media and media influence seem to have the power. And you say, well, I'm going to align myself with the power. Don't waste your time. You're aligning yourself on a defeated cause, with a defeated cause. Don't waste your time, because this whole thing is connected with the mark of the beast. It's man trying to undo all vestiges of the kingdom of heaven on planet Earth. It's man trying to throw off. It's man trying to purge. Oh, yes, that's the word. It's the purging of all vestiges of God in human society. It is man and Satan combining in a last-ditch effort to cleanse the planet of everything that reminds us of God. It's the establishment of the system of the mark of the beast. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 18 says, "Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, because it is a number of men." It's the number of a man, and his number is 666, 3 sixes. 6 is the number of man. Why you have it 3 times there presented? Because it is man's effort to put himself in the place of God. The number 3 represents divine perfection. It is man asserting himself to have attained divine perfection. And once we have attained divine perfection, we no longer need God to define for us what is perfection. We can define it ourselves, as the serpent said to Eve at the beginning of man's falling away in Eden. You will be as gods, knowing good and evil. You will no longer need God to define it for you. Wokeness, cancel culture, is man defining his reality. And his great ambition is to define reality so that he, as God, sits in the place of God, showing himself that he is God. Are you going to join that definition? Isn't it alluring that you should be able to sit as God, the arbiter of your own destiny, the definer of your own reality? Isn't that a very tempting prospect? Will you succumb to it? Or will you resist it? In the name of God, in the defense of his honor, will you rise and say, I will not be silent, because silence is consent. Silence to this insidious move, blasphemous move, to take over the place of God by men. Every man, every woman that keeps silent on this issue is giving their consent that it is beautiful, that it is enticing, that it is delicious, that it is desirable that men should be God. And even if you yourself will not assert openly that you desire the place of God, your silence and your failure to stand in defense of the true God, of the one who deserves the throne, of the one who deserves to be first in the kingdom, will be counted as your assent. And Jesus has said, everyone that confesses me before men, I will confess him before my Father in heaven. But if anyone is ashamed of me, anyone who is ashamed to confess me before men, I will be ashamed to confess him before my Father in heaven, who is the true King of the universe. So we have to, this is no sitting on the fence matter. This is the place where we're reached. The world has come to the place where this war that has always been, but has been pushed on under the current so that men could be, concentrate on the regular run-of-the-mill activity of the day, survival and prosperity. This has been pushed on the current, but now it's no longer under the current. Now it's rising up like a hideous dragon before our faces. And we will have to make a choice. Either we will bow and submit and live at peace with Satan's kingdom.
Thank you,
Only
Mark.
to awake
Very powerful and indeed.
who is against the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But we have to make a choice.
Indeed. There is a lot of confusion today, and a lot of Christians are confused about the origins of wokeness as it turned out to be today, almost as a religion. And because the language, as we have pointed out, has been hijacked, terminology such as social justice on the surface seems to be coming out of maybe a misunderstood Christianity, but is that so? So I'm not the only one pointing out to the fact that the wokeness ideology has its roots in the Communist Manifesto. So to your question before, will this ideology fail? Well, friends, look back to history. Did communism fail? The Communist Manifesto, which I'm very close related to, stated that every form of society has been based, as we have already seen, on the antagonism of oppressing and oppressed classes. This perspective of human identity and societal ordering fit fluidly with Darwinian ideology. So now we have to wake up to the realization. If wokeness is going to be a replacement of Christianity, and by just remaining silent, that means compliance, governments around the world, especially here in the West, are already in the process of enforcing this new religion. So it is our aim, and would like to ask you, our viewers, to take this very serious, because it's coming to you if it didn't already happen. Maybe you have a son, maybe you have a daughter, maybe you have someone in a family, maybe you have a friend that has already been embracing the wokeness ideology. But Mark, yes, it's not possible to cover these complex ideologies within 1 hour or so. We're trying to cut this down, but we can only point you to the dangers coming in, this tsunami, so you can seek shelter before it's coming. So wake up, protect your spiritual self and your family, because the enemy is coming to get you and your kids. Christianity not only has received the paddles to navigate away from the tsunami in these troubled waters that will leave us today in the world, but Christianity has an obligation, a Bible-based Christianity, to point our fellow human beings, especially those on the side of wokeness, especially those. And I hope we would be able to have a dialogue and a conversation, to point them toward the one true safe harbor in this world. Because wokeness, social justice being promoted by the wokeness religion, is not a safe harbor. Many people, they think that this is just one path among many to God. that it is the system of systems, the body of moral codes that form our reality framework. But is that so? For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of flesh, have divine power to destroy strongholds, arguments, and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete. So Mark, we should have done it in 2 parts because it's a very complex topic and we're trying to cover. But for those of you that are not willing to continue, you can always pause, even if it's a live stream, and you can watch this program at a later point. Just here, before we finalize this introduction to this very important topic, let's walk through some of the doctrines of this new religion, because every religion, of course, has its own doctrine. And let's just take some of the most important doctrines in this new religion, which has come to obviously replace Christianity. So let's see. Are we as Christians failing Christianity, so we need a better religion, we need a better way? Well, intersectionality. That's the picture I have from Coca-Cola, and if you don't see there, it says, try to be less white. I don't know about you guys over there. I don't know if you embrace this ideology, because personally, when I'm looking at people, I don't really see color. Let me take that picture away from my presentation. What I want to point out is to this doctrine, the intersectionality doctrine, which I want to point from this book which I mentioned before, and it's coming here on the screen. Wokeness doctrine of intersectionality tweaks the doctrine of humanity, losing sight of the imago Dei as our constituent identity. The image of God is the ground of our only positive anthropological unity as the human race. God made the man in his image and made the woman from the man's rib. As a result, both the man and the woman and all their offspring bear the image of God. Every person is thus fully human per the image. This is our starting point for understanding every human person. We do not begin with how unlike, which is the diversity ideology in the wokeness religion, we all are. Rather, we begin with anthropological unity grounded in who God made us to be and who we are even in our post-fall world. Every person is fully human per the image of God, friends. So if you refute that, if you rather embrace wokeness and diversity, what identity are you really embracing? It doesn't really... Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Babylon has been unleashed. You know, the word Babylon comes from Babel or Babel, which means to speak confusedly, to utter confusion. That is what Babylon is, at the basis of Babylon, to utter confusion. And this is utter confusion, because once you try to shift the moral boundaries, you're going to end up condemning what you should not condemn and upholding what you should not uphold. So in this new orientation, or in this new paradigm shift, we're being told to be tolerant. Tolerance is the chief virtue. So you should be tolerant of alternative lifestyles. What does it mean, alternative? Alternative lifestyle are lifestyles that were once deemed immoral, abominable, criminal. Now, these lifestyles that were tabooed by the scriptures and by other civilizations, older civilizations, we are now to embrace them. They are now an alternative. Okay, so this is tolerance. But the same movement that is redefining and calling the world and calling us to consciously accept, to receive, to embrace that which was deemed intolerable and taboo, abominable, is now also asking us to be intolerant to certain things. You now have to be intolerant to the old values. You now have to be intolerant to certain racial identities. Okay, or ethnic identities, because the truth is there's one race, and that's the human race. We are all children of Adam. We have one father. There courses through our veins, one blood, the blood of our father Adam. But, okay, this is virtual reality, this is synthetic reality, so you have to give new definitions of what is intolerance, and you have to have some place. It's showing us that even in a tolerant world, there is still room for intolerance. And this call for us to demonize whiteness, or whatever. It could be demonizing blackness, or it could be demonizing yellowness, or it could be demonizing redness, whatever, to dehumanize, to demonize that which something human is a seed to genocide. I hope we are understanding this, because Hitler pushed his propaganda to demonize the Jews and blacks. He said these are, old races, and they have not evolved. We need to embrace the newer races, a more modern, more evolved race, the Aryan race. And once the people embraced that ideology, once they began to embrace that ideology, it was the sowing of a seed that would later come forth in a harvest of genocide. I hope we're understanding what we're dealing with and the consequences of embracing this new cancel culture. Because to embrace their definitions is not just a matter of semantics, linguistic semantics, is to embrace a new reality, is to embrace a new morality. It's to turn the old on its head, and therefore to make tolerable that which in the past, not just the law of God, the law of the Bible, or Hammurabi's law, or whoever else's law, would deem intolerable, but now to embrace the intolerable, to embrace what our own consciences would define as intolerable. So now we have to play the hypocrites. We ourselves are launching or keeping silent or opening the door to an attack on our own consciousness, on our own consciences. We are denying ourselves reality and walking about on the street with the emperor in his new vestments and saying, "Oh, wonderful you're looking, Mr. Emperor," and don't have without the courage to state the obvious, to state the truth. The emperor has no clothes.
Thank
We
you, Mark.
have to say something
Yeah,
before it's too late.
indeed. And let's point to another, and the last one we're going to point in this presentation, another aggressive doctrine is the so-called critical race theory. And the same book which I would definitely advise anyone to read that is willing to understand is buzzwords like systemic racism, implicit bias, whiteness, white privilege, cultural appropriation, colonization, microaggression, social justice constitute the essential vernacular of critical race theory. And I couldn't help it. I hope really that I'm not going to offend anyone, but this is actually believed to be the insignia of the wokeness today. Anything goes. I support the current thing. So friends, I'm not here to criticize anybody or to point fingers at anyone, because the predictable and inescapable result of critical race theory is actually division and not unity. It has lately been so aggressively promoted even within Christian communities that originally were founded on the principle that Christian unity is an essential expression of the gospel. We have experienced, and we do experience, even on church leaders who would self-identify as gospel-centered, seems to have shifted the actual focus of their message to what is being called now social justice. Other themes borrowed from the critical race theory. Meanwhile, real gospel doctrines like how are we going to deal with sin, atonement, justification, sanctification, the sanctuary message are obviously being eclipsed by lectures today all over social media and papers, social inequities, ethnic injustices, the struggle between man and woman that can never be ended. So it seems that in many pulpits more gospel language is being replaced by socialist, communist rhetoric. So before we finalize this short introduction about wokeness, I believe that there is a strong demand, not from us, but from a biblical perspective worldview, to know what wokeness really is and what is not. Is wokeness, and maybe we can conclude with that, is wokeness just an upgrade of Christianity, or is it a replacement? So here are, I made some notes here, a few stances and conviction that are not woke, despite what we may have heard. The following principles and actions are righteous, stemming from a Bible-based Christian worldview, friends, not from any worldly system that tries to blend and confuse humanity. So I'll quickly go through some of these points. There are some Bible verses related to that, and I will not read them. We don't have the time. But I want to make a point here, because sometimes we get confused of choosing the only real reality because we are not accustomed to reality. Wanting societal harmony across backgrounds and skin colors is not woke. If you read Revelation 7.9, the all nations, and that is the group of people which are going to be saved at the end of time, are coming from all nations, kindred, people, and tongues. So did the Bible, that's only one of the verses, did God ever wanted and created humanity to live in harmony? Do we need wokeness culture? Do we need cancel culture to achieve what obviously God didn't succeed with? Is that what it is? Because God failed? So let's replace that with a better religion, a better doctrine, that we will achieve this social justice, harmony, because we enforce legislation where boys and girls are not supposed to be longer boys and girls and they can just go to the same bathroom. Is that what it is? You know, wanting peace is not a woke doctrine. The Bible is very clear. Jesus himself, peace I leave unto you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give you. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Grieving the needless death of all human beings who are made in the image of God and bear a God-given dignity and purpose is not woke. For godly sorrow produces repentance leading to salvation. To grieve the death of George Floyd or whoever wokeness grieving is should be compared to a biblical grieving, which is producing repentance. I have a couple of more here before we end this topic. Doing everything you can and know to build bonds with people different from you in various ways is not woke. And again, we have to point, we are not here to just live in our little cozy club community. This is not biblical. The Bible is very clear. Let nothing be done through strife and vainglory. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love. Because greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So if you listen carefully at the introduction video, that was there was a clip that was recorded at one of these many demonstration of wokeness in the United States. And if you listen carefully, they were praying with their hands up, I would love my black neighbor and I would hate my white neighbor. The doctrine of wokeness. Go back when you have time and listen to that video clip. Greater love, says the Bible, and this is Jesus, hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Never in the Bible we find, I won't do it if he's black or if she's Chinese. That's not the Bible. Let me just take the last one here. Knowing that Jesus Christ came into this world as a Middle Eastern Jew and not a white person with flowing golden locks is not woke. Friends, let's get back to primitive Christianity. That's the real reality, not the artificial reality which is being enforced upon us today. And so wanting greater justice in the world that is filled with hostility, pain, and injustice is not woke, because the Bible is overwhelmingly clear that let the judgment run down as waters, righteousness as a mighty stream. Avenge not yourself, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, say the Lord. Learn to do well, seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. And there are many other aspects, friends, in the new religion, in the new doctrine. It is trying to replace a Bible-based Christianity today. And we don't have time to cover this. This statement matters because many people, many Christians today are confused about what wokeness is. Many wonder if they are woke maybe by instinct because they hate racism, love humanity as made in God's image, wants to work as much as possible to do social justice. So let's get straight our language. Let's get straight where identity comes from and who invented justice, if we can say so. And that will be a starting point, which I believe it's very important because Christians have to realize before it's too late, before the tsunami is gonna take us all, that this is not the option. A last word, Mark, here at the end of this conversation from you.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. This is very, very informative presentation, and indeed, it's necessary for us to look at the definitions, because that's what wokeness is at the wokeness, redefining words and creating reality through the definition of words. In normal English language, the term woke has connections and connotations to being awake. It means to be aware. But what is wokeness? And the postmodern expression, the term is being used in the post context. What is it saying? It's actually defined state of as a state of being unaware, as woke, a state of negation of reality as being woke. In other words, it's using the word connected to be awake to define what is but state of sleep and slumber. Very contrary and distinct from what the Bible counsels to us. For example, here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 6, it says, therefore, let us not sleep as do others. I want to leave this as a word of counsel to our Christian brothers, and also a word of counsel to all who are watching. Let us not sleep as do others. Wokeness is gonna lure you to a spiritual and moral sleep. Not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober, for they that sleep in the night and they that be drunk are in the night. And the night here is pointing to the dark part of the day. Darkness is what's coming in the woke agenda. It's an agenda to baptize the world in darkness. So let us not night as they that be drunk are drunken in the night, but let us are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for an helmet the hope of salvation. To embrace wokeness is to deny faith, love, and hope for salvation. And it says, why not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. So what's Satan orchestrating? Our separation from the Lord of salvation. The Apostle Peter gives us a where he tells us in 1 Peter 5 verse, be sober, be not term woke, but in the real term, be awake, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walketh about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And he has thousands to set his traps. He has thousands of traps. This is one that is multifaceted. This is one of his traps, his last day traps that's multifaceted. Let us not sleep. Let us not allow this age and the ideology of this age to lull us into slumber, into a spiritual lack of perception. Let us awake, let us be sober, let us be watchful, let us be determined not to sleep. And I'm saying, friends, wokeness is drowsiness. Wokeness, as the term is today, is spiritual and moral drowsiness. It is to lay down. It is to lay down even to you to help to define and error, good and from evil, and to alert you to choose the good and to the evil. Let us be sober, be vigilant, because we do an adversary. And this adversary is one of his greatest ways at coming against us is to come not as an adversary, as one who is come to devour us, but to come a friend. This is strategy. But if we are awake, if we are truly awake, if we are armed with the mercilessness and light, armed with the knowledge of truth through the Word of God, reality, if we resist pushing or to baptize us into virtual or synthetic reality and embrace wholeheartedly reality, it will be, he says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. There is.
Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're breaking up very much, and we can't really hear what you're saying. Your connection, it's obviously very bad. I'm sorry about that. We wish we could have hear you loud and clear here at the end. I just have to get back to what we were talking about and having our final conversation, because this short survey that we have done today, at least for those of us that are studying this topic, it seems very much that it's a serious movement. This movement is underway, and it's vying for the hearts and minds of your children, if it's not already there. And so we hopefully have demonstrated that these works are soaked in worldly ideology of wokeness. And we always have to remember that the enemy does, for the most part, not appear in robes of darkness to deceive you and I. He is usually often masquerading as an angel of light. So I believe, and we believe, that it is past time for Christians to wake up. And this is our call as a watchman. Not wake up to the so-called truth of wokeness, but to the deceptions that is creeping into our lives today. Will you just wait and see what the outcome is going to be? Will you just wait and see that you will lose your children and their soul to this new religion? Because much depends on your reaction. And silence is not a reaction, it's compliance. Whether we will contend and contend. And again, friends, the hour it's late. This is at stake, not just some fringe ideology. So hopefully we have reinforced your conviction, or at least triggered your Christian survival instinct, if I may use this word, to seek guidance from above, because Christianity and wokeness are totally incompatible in spite of seemingly similarities. Because on one side stands Christianity as the truth of God found in the Word of God, whereas wokeness, as we are at pain to say, is a different religion altogether. Now the watchman has spoken. The choice is yours. Thank you.
The Lord is my shepherd, and so I lack nothing. In meadows of green grass, He lets me lie down beside the still waters. He patiently leads me, restoring my soul, restoring my soul. For His holy name's sake, He guides me by right paths, though I may stray to the veil of deep darkness. I fear no evil, for You are there with me, beside me, Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before my enemies. My head my cup's overflowing. Your goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I'll make my home place in the house of the Lord, and I'll make my home place in the house of the Lord.